Welcome back. The last lesson was lesson 7, where we showed how to play that beautiful introduction to Brown Eyed Girl with the thirds, third notes that harmonize really well. And I said after that lesson we'd have the next lesson that would explain how you can play thirds all over the fretboard and in any key. And there's a relatively simple system for doing that. When you understand the system, you'll be able to do it. So stay tuned. Let's get our guitars and let's get going with learning thirds. So let's zoom in, get a little bit closer so you can see what we're doing. So this is a chord chart for every key. And this lesson we're going to cover the major keys up here on the top half of the screen. So we're going to cover these, and next lesson we'll do the minors. We'll do thirds for the minors. But we'll start with the key of G right here. Now, if you know how this works, I mean, don't be intimidated by this if you haven't seen this before. But the key of G is the 1-4-5, which is the most common kind of song and blues progression and rock and roll, is the first chord is G, and then a C and a D, right? The 4 and the 5. So if you look at it that way, looking at G, it sort of sounds like this, right? That sound. Now if you know the 1-4-5, then you know the only major chords, and we're gonna pick the thirds out of these chords. So, but I first want to show you the chords, and then you'll see how the system works. So a 1-4-5 is a G and a C and a D. So that's telling us the only chords on. So sorry for the interruption. So that's telling us the only chords that are major are G, C, and D. So we're going to go up the scale, and I'm going to zoom in closer. So you might want to print this out. I'll have this handout in the description below. You might want to print this out if you're not sure exactly, the pattern here. But it's basically a major, two minors, two majors, a minor, and a diminished. Now a diminished chord has the attributes of a minor chord. So you can play the thirds as if it's a minor chord. So don't worry so much about the fact that this is diminished. Because it has a lot of the attributes of a minor chord, without getting into details on that. So let's zoom in a little bit closer on the guitar and show you what we're doing here. Okay, so I'm gonna take the chords right up the G scale, and I'm not gonna play the full bar chord like this. I mean, we can, but basically, if you're looking at that chart, it's G, G major, A minor, B minor, right, and then you switch to major chords. So rather than do the full C, I'll just do it like this, a little bit easier to see. C, D, right? And then E minor, F sharp minor. It's really F sharp diminished, but as I said, for the purpose of playing thirds, it's the same thing. So we'll call this a minor. We'll call this a F sharp minor instead of diminished. And then back to the G. So if you follow that pattern, if you're understanding that we're really going just up the chord chain, up the chord scale. So that's how we're just going to pick two notes from that. So from this G, we're just going to pick the B on the fourth fret on the G string, which is a B, and the third fret on the E string, which is a G. And I'm just going to go up. And now I'm going to put two fingers down here because that's, part of this minor chord. So it's major, minor, minor, major, right, from the C chord, major, major, C, D, E minor. Now this E minor is, E minor, F sharp minor. Just going to play these two notes, E minor, F sharp minor, G, E minor, F sharp minor, G. Right, so if I go up quick, if I do the whole scale, it's major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor, major. So that's how you know how to play it. So you may need the chord chart until you're more familiar with it, but the bottom line is everything they're all minor keys except for the one. They're all minor chords except for the 1, 4, 5, right? The 1, which is the G, the 4, which is a C, and the 5, which is the D. So it's major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, minor, major. Or if you don't, again, I'm plucking 2 strings at the same time, and we talked about that in the last lesson, where I have the pick between my thumb and index finger. I'm taking my middle finger to grab this, to grab the E string. But if you're not comfortable with this yet, I mean, you should learn it. You know, you could just pluck them. And again, this is in a lot of songs. The beginning to Blues Brothers, you know, Soul Man. It's an E. Might sound familiar. The beginning of Soul Man with the Blues Brothers in that movie. If you haven't seen the Blues Brothers movie, watch it. It's really a fun movie. And there's the Soul Man in there by Dan. Their version of it with Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi. Sorry. So that's how we're getting the thirds from the G and the E string. Right? Now we've got to cover some of the other strings, right? So now if we want to play thirds here, because you remember when we did Brown-Eyed Girl, it's it's really in the key of G, but we play it up here. That was less than 7, right? So now here, you know, for that intro, we were using the G, we're using the D and the B strings, and also the G and the E string. So now we just saw how we can use the chord chart to go up the scale, the chord scale, using the G and B strings, the G and E string, G and E. Alright, so now how do we get to play the other 2 strings in here? How do we get to find all the thirds when we want to play the D and the B string? Now that is, we're going to switch to a different chord pattern. So this is, you know, we were talking about G, right? B, A. Now we want to switch to a chord pattern. Let's switch to the key of D. And again, if you print out the chord chart, it might be easier for you to follow, but the key of D is the same thing is with respect to, it's going to be the 1, 4, 5. We're going to stick to that. 1, 4, 5 are the only major chords, and all the other ones are minors. But we're going to start with D instead of G to make it easier to learn how to play on the D and B string, the thirds. So let's start with a D like this. You know the D chord. Well, if you play it a little bit differently and get your ring finger on the F sharp, right, D, on the D string. If you get your ring finger there and you play the D like this, we're going to pick these two notes. And those are thirds for the D chord. So we're going to play all of the majors with this pattern, right? Like the D, but with the extra finger here. So we're going to play the D. The other 2, the 1, 4, 5, that's 1 for D, right? And the 4 is the G. Sorry, just G sharp. G, and then the I'm sorry. Sorry, I was thinking of the G scale again. Let's go back to the key of D. So we're going to play with this shape as a major. We're going to have G. I'm sorry, D. I should make this a separate lesson so I don't mix these keys up. So D, and then G, and then A. Right, there's that sound, right? The 1, 4, 5. G, A, G, A, D. G, D, G, A. D, G, A. Sorry, A. So, knowing that, we're going to play a different minor shape to get when we have to play the minors. So we start off with D, then we want to play E, we're going to play this E minor. Now this is like the D minor here, right? The shape that we just able to slide up and down to get different. This is a D, as we talked in an earlier lesson, a D minor. But if you finger it a little bit differently and put your ring finger on the F and your middle finger on the A, the second fret of the G string, and your pinky on the third fret of the B string, you get a D minor. But you're getting this extra note here, see, which you need for the thirds. You're getting the note on the third fret of the D string. So if you play a minor like that, and you start off with D, then you go to E minor, right? And then you go to the next note, which is going to be, next chord, which is going to be the F sharp minor, right? And then we go to G, then we go to A, G major, A major, and then we're going to go to B minor. I'm going to play it this way again. B minor, C sharp minor. It's supposed to be in the scale C sharp diminished, but as I said, you can play the minor because the notes we're picking out are going to be the notes that are the same notes in the diminished chord verse and the minor chord as well. So write that C sharp minor, and then you're going to go back to D here, right? Well, these are really D like this, right? Because you need this note here. You need the note on the D string and the note on the B string. So that's how we're going to play the thirds on the D and the D and the B string, right? So again, it's going to be majors like this, D, G, A, and the minors like this, E minor, F sharp minor, B minor, and C sharp diminished, or C sharp minor, really, C sharp minor, and then back up to the D. So let's see how that sounds, right? We'll go D. I'll go slow D. Now I'm just going to pick these two notes out. These two notes. I'm now I have my index finger on the third fret of the B string and my ring finger on the fourth fret of the D string, which is an F sharp, right? So that's those two notes we're pulling from this major. I'm just pulling these two notes. And then these two notes from the E minor, the fifth fret on the D and B strings. So this is the full chord, but I'm just going to use these two, right? So with that pattern, I go D, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A, B minor, C sharp minor, D, right? So now you understand the pattern by using these different chord shapes, this shape for the major and this shape for the minor, and you just pull off those two notes on those two strings, the B and the D string, right? But again, you may want to print out. You might want to print out that this chart. Let's see. I'll pull up the chart here. You might want to print out this chart. I'll have it in the description, and then you can easily follow. You know, the 1-4-5. You know the G C D for the other shape, right? For the E shape and the E minor shape chord, and then when you're playing the D, you can switch to the D shape chord and the D minor shape chord, right? And that'll cover these chords right here. So it's really getting accustomed to learning that there's a 1-4-5 for the majors and everything else is minor. So 1-4-5 are the major chords in the scale, right? So now I guess what I should say also is that we looked at two different patterns, right? Let's go. Those two patterns can be used for many different keys. We demonstrated the G scale, major G, and the major D, but those two patterns can be used for lots of other things. So for example, we started off with G, right? But you could play that same pattern with the shape of the E major shape and the E minor shape. You can do that for the scale of A, right? A, B minor, C sharp minor, D major, E major, F sharp minor, and then back to F sharp minor, and then G sharp minor, and then A. So this is changeable. You know, wherever you could do it. You could do F, the scale of F, G minor, A minor, B flat major, C major, D minor, E minor, E minor, and then back to F. So those shapes, I want it just to be clear that those two shapes, the E major shape and the E minor shape that we demonstrated for the G, can be used in lots of different places on the up and down the fretboard for different keys. Similarly, the D shape that we used and the D minor shape that we used, that could be moved up and down the fretboard for all kinds of keys. So obviously all of the, maybe, I guess it's pretty obvious. So all of these keys here can be used with those two different patterns, the E major shape, the E minor shape that we demonstrated with the G major scale, and the D shape with the extra finger, you know, this guy, and the D minor shape with the extra finger up and down the fretboard for all these different keys. So that's the system. It's really, you know, once you get that locked into your head and you use this chart, print off this chart that's in the description, practice it, and the next lesson will be the minor keys. We'll use these keys here, but just to keep it simple, and not to make the video too long, we'll just focus on the majors. That said, ciao for now, have fun, and talk to you later. Bye.